Have you ever woken up feeling like something was wrong, but couldn't put your finger on what it was? Have you caught yourself doing things you didn't even want to do, buying things you didn't even need, living a life that seemed more like someone else's than your own? If you answered yes, you need to hear this story. A story that began in 1932, but is happening right now, in your life, on your phone, in your head. Aldous Huxley wasn't inventing a fantasy when he wrote Brave New World. Oh, he was revealing a terrible secret: how to control an entire person without them realizing it. And you, my friend, are living inside that strategy at this very moment. Get ready to discover how you became a prisoner of your own happiness. It was 1932. The world was still recovering from the Great Depression. People were afraid, angry, questioning everything. It was at this moment that Aldous Huxley had a vision that would change everything. He wasn't writing about a distant future. He was drawing a map of the present disguised as fiction. Huxley grew up witnessing the horrors of World War I. He saw how brute force tried to dominate the masses. But he realized something that no one else was seeing. Power was changing its strategy. You know that moment when you finally understand how a magic trick works? Huxley had that moment. He saw that the future of control wouldn't be through pain, but through pleasure. There would be no need to break people. You just had to seduce them. Think about it. What's the difference between a prisoner in a cell and an addict in a rehabilitation clinic? The prisoner wants to get out. The addict is afraid to get out. Huxley's prophecy wasn't talking about robots or spaceships. It was talking about you. Checking your phone for the 10th time in an hour. Watching one more episode when you should be sleeping. Buying something you saw in an ad and can't even remember why. Meanwhile, George Orwell, Huxley's contemporary, imagined a world of cameras, surveillance, explicit oppression. Big Brother watching you. But guess who got it right? You don't need Big Brother when you have Instagram stories. You tell everything about your life yourself, voluntarily. You don't need the thought police when you have algorithms that already know what you're going to think before you think it. The dictatorship didn't arrive by breaking down doors. It arrived by offering convenience. And so began the era of sweet domination, where the chains are made of Wi-Fi and the handcuffs are notifications. Let me tell you a story about two lions. The first lion was in an iron cage, thick bars, heavy padlocks. He roared day and night, tried to escape, scratched at the bars until his paws bled. Everyone who passed by knew that was a wild animal being held against its will. The second lion was in an open field with no visible fences. But right in the center of the field, every day at the same time, appeared the most delicious meal he had ever tasted. Succulent, seasoned, with no effort whatsoever to get it. Over time, the second lion stopped hunting. Why make an effort when food came to him? He stopped exploring the territory. Why leave when everything he needed was right there? Years passed. The first lion was still trying to escape. The second lion didn't even remember that a world existed beyond that field. Now tell me, which one was really trapped? That's the difference between the control our grandparents feared and the control we live with today. They feared oppression that came with boots and uniforms. We live with oppression that comes with Netflix, delivery, and social media. It's so comfortable we don't even notice the bars. You want a practical example? How many times today did you do something because you really wanted to? And how many times did you do it because a notification called you? How many purchases did you make out of real necessity? And how many because something inside you said, "This will make me feel better"? The system discovered the secret. It doesn't need to force us to do anything. It just needs to create the right conditions, and we ourselves choose exactly what it wants. It's brilliant and terrible. I need to tell you something about your brain that you might not know. Inside your head exists a system that evolved over millions of years. Your ancestors, when they found food after days of hunger, felt an explosion of pleasure, dopamine. When they solved a problem that threatened survival, more dopamine. When they reproduced and ensured the continuity of the species, dopamine again. This system was perfect for millions of years. It guaranteed that you would be here today. But here's the problem. Your brain didn't evolve to deal with the modern world. Today, you get the same dopamine hit for liking a photo on Instagram, the same chemical reward for receiving a WhatsApp notification, the same pleasure from buying something online that your ancestors felt for surviving another day. Your brain can't distinguish. To it, a like is food, a notification is success, a purchase is conquest. And you? Have you stopped to think how many times today you felt real pleasure? Not chemical, artificial pleasure, but real pleasure, the kind that comes from a deep conversation, from a moment of silence, from a problem solved with your own hands. The result of this confusion is that we start seeking always the easiest path to gratification. Why study something difficult for months when we can feel pleasure watching a 3-minute video? Why build deep relationships when we can have hundreds of friends online? A person addicted to instant gratification will never question the system that provides that gratification. It's like questioning the dealer who gives you the drug. And that's where the danger lies. You don't realize you're trapped because the prison is made of what you love most. Let me ask you a question. When was the last time you were bored? Not bored like, I have nothing to do, but truly bored. Without a phone, without television, without music, without anything. Just you and your thoughts. I bet you can't remember. And there's a reason for that. There was a time when entertainment was something special. It happened after work, after responsibilities, after solving life's problems. It was a deserved break, a moment of relief. Today, entertainment is no longer a break from life. It is life. You wake up checking social media. You have coffee watching videos. You go to work listening to podcasts. You eat lunch watching series. You come home playing on your phone. You sleep with the television on. Entertainment fills every second of the day, every gap of silence, every moment when you could be thinking. But wait, this entertainment isn't innocent. Every series you watch has a cliffhanger mathematically calculated to make you want the next episode. Every social network uses algorithms that have studied millions of people like you to know exactly what addicts you. Every game is built by behavioral psychologists to never end. You think you're having fun, but actually you're being studied. Every click you make, every pause, every reaction is recorded and analyzed. The goal isn't to entertain you. The goal is to keep you busy. Because a busy mind doesn't question. A constantly distracted person never stops to think about their own condition. It's like that friend who always changes the subject when you try to have a serious conversation. Except now, that friend is the entire world. Have you noticed how nowadays everyone has an opinion about everything, but no one has a deep opinion about anything? Modern entertainment is like constant noise that prevents you from hearing your own thoughts. It's a blinding glare that prevents you from seeing the reality around you. And the cruelest part? The more you consume, the emptier you feel. But instead of questioning the system, you ask for more. More series, more games, more content. It's like dying of thirst and drinking salt water. The more you drink, the thirstier you get. Now I'm going to ask you a question that might bother you. You wake up in the morning and already have dozens of choices to make, right? What clothes to wear from the many in your closet? What coffee to order from the various delivery options? What music to listen to on your personalized playlist? What series to watch from the infinite catalogue? The feeling is one of total freedom, absolute control over your life. But answer me honestly, do these choices really matter? Does switching from one coffee brand to another change anything fundamental about your existence? Does choosing between Netflix and Amazon Prime transform your reality in any way? It's like being in a giant restaurant with 1,000 dishes on the menu, but all made in the same kitchen, with the same ingredients, by the same chef. The illusion of variety masks uniformity. The real choices, those that could actually transform your life, are carefully hidden or discouraged. You can choose from 1,000 types of entertainment, but questioning why you need to constantly entertain yourself is considered strange. You can choose from hundreds of products, but questioning why you need to consume so much is seen as radical. It's like a card game where you can choose any card from the deck, but all the cards lead to the same result. And here's the scariest part. You defend these false choices tooth and nail, as if they were your most precious freedom. Scholars have called this repressive tolerance, a system that allows infinite superficial variations while keeping fundamental structures untouchable. It's like letting you paint the prison cell any color you want, but never questioning why you're imprisoned. You want to know something that will give you chills? If you pay attention today, you'll notice that you hardly make conscious decisions. You don't decide to watch that specific video on YouTube. The algorithm decides for you, based on what people like you have watched. You don't choose the products that appear on your Instagram. An artificial system selects based on all your previous behaviors. You don't consciously decide what to think about when you wake up. The first notifications from your phone already direct your thoughts. The scariest part? These algorithms know you better than you know yourself. They know what type of content will make you anxious. They know which will make you happy. They know which will make you buy something. They know what time of day you're most emotionally vulnerable. They know which keywords activate your deepest fears and your most secret desires. You think you're freely navigating the internet, but actually you're being led down invisible trails, like a rat in a maze that thinks it's exploring. Every click, every pause, every micro-expression you make looking at the screen is recorded and used to further refine control over you. Shoshana Zuboff discovered something terrifying. These companies have transformed human experience into extractable data. Every emotion you feel, every movement you make, every hesitation you have becomes valuable information to predict and modify your future behaviors. You're no longer the customer. You are the product being refined. And the most brilliant part, the more you use these platforms, the more data you provide to the very system that controls you. It's like paying someone to make a map of your mind and then use that map against you. You've become both product and consumer at the same time, feeding a machine that studies you to sell you back to yourself. Let me tell you how you were transformed into a desire machine. In the past, advertising was simple. Here's a product. Here's why you should buy it. Straight to the point. Today, marketing is a complex science that studies the human mind to create desires that didn't even exist before. They no longer sell products. They sell dreams, identities, solutions to problems you didn't know you had. You don't buy sneakers. You buy the feeling of being athletic. You don't buy a car. You buy status. You don't buy cosmetics. You buy youth. You don't buy food. You buy happy moments. Modern marketing discovered that people don't want products. They want feelings. And it started selling feelings packaged in merchandise. But here's the problem. Feelings can't be bought. So you buy the product, don't feel what was promised, and need to buy more to try to reach that sensation that never comes. It's a perfect and infinite cycle. The more you consume trying to feel complete, the emptier you become. The emptier you become, the more you consume. Dissatisfaction isn't a side effect of the system. It is the fuel of the system. The father of modern public relations discovered in the 1920s how to use insights from psychoanalysis to manipulate unconscious desires. Experts transformed real needs into artificial wants, creating the foundation of modern consumerism. Companies today spend billions studying your insecurities, your fears, your deepest desires. They create campaigns that touch exactly the points where you feel inadequate. They make you feel there's something wrong with your current life, and that the solution is one purchase away. You work 40 hours a week to have money to buy things that promise to make you happy. The happiness never comes, so you work more hours to buy more things. Your entire life becomes a race after a carrot that's always one step ahead. And while you're running, you don't have time to realize that maybe happiness isn't for sale. I need to tell you about the biggest transformation that has ever happened in human history. Everything, and when I say everything, it's everything, in modern life has been transformed into a commodity. You no longer eat, you consume gastronomic experiences. You don't sleep, you invest in wellness. You don't relate, you seek authentic connections on the right app. You don't love, you optimize relationships. Even love, the most free and natural experience in the world, became a product. You pay for apps that promise to find your soulmate. You pay for coaches who teach how to win someone over. You pay for therapies that promise to teach you to love yourself. Food stopped being nutrition to become experience. You don't go to a restaurant to satisfy hunger. You go to live moments. You pay not for the food, but for the atmosphere, for the photo you'll post, for the feeling of doing something special. Even nature needs to be packaged and sold. You can no longer simply go out and walk. You need apps that gamify exercise, special technical clothes, motivational playlists. Thinkers had already predicted that everything would be transformed into commodity, but not even they imagined this would include emotions, relationships, and even spiritual seeking. By transforming everything into a product, we lost the ability to simply exist. We can no longer be present in any experience because we're always evaluating whether it's worth the money, whether it's generating the expected content. We stopped living life to consume the experience of living. It's like always watching your own life in a movie, never really participating in it. Now I'm going to tell you about the biggest lie they sold you. Being happy became a social obligation. You can no longer simply exist with your natural sadness, your fears, your doubts. You need to always be well, always optimistic, always grateful, always growing. Happiness stopped being an occasional state to become a permanent goal. And where there's a goal that everyone needs to reach, there's a billion-dollar industry ready to sell the solution. Happiness coaches, positive thinking courses, meditation apps, mindfulness retreats, mood supplements. They transformed well-being into a business. But here's the ironic part. All this desperate search for happiness is generating more anxiety and depression than ever. Because now, in addition to life's normal problems, you have the additional weight of not being happy enough. In addition to dealing with your difficulties, you need to blame yourself for not being able to overcome them with the right attitude. Meditation, which for millennia was a free practice of inner seeking, became a paid app. Therapy, which should be a sacred space, became content for social networks. Silence, which was always free and accessible, became a product sold at expensive retreats. Even spirituality was commercialized. You can no longer have a simple and direct connection with the sacred. You need to buy crystals, take courses, follow gurus. Byung-Chul Han describes our era as the burnout society, where the imperative to always be positive, always productive, always optimized creates unprecedented psychic exhaustion. We're no longer repressed from the outside. We repress ourselves from within, thinking that every dissatisfaction is personal failure. The result is an entire generation that feels guilty for not being constantly happy, that spends fortunes trying to buy well-being. Happiness itself became another golden prison. Have you ever stopped to think why we spend 16 years of our life in a classroom? The modern educational system wasn't created to form free thinkers, questioners, people capable of seeing beyond appearances. It was designed to produce obedient workers, efficient consumers, citizens who follow rules without questioning. From an early age, a child learns that their main function is to conform. Sit in the right desk, at the right time, do the right activities, give the right answers. They're not taught to think critically about what they're learning, but to memorize and repeat. They're not encouraged to question why things are the way they are, but to accept that this is how it should be. The curriculum is carefully selected. You learn enough math to do your calculations, but not enough economics to understand how money really works. You learn enough history to pass the test, but not enough to recognize patterns that repeat themselves. Education became a production line that takes naturally curious children and transforms them into adults who only ask questions whose answers don't threaten the system. Critical teachers argue that modern schools don't educate, they schoolify. They teach conformity, dependence, passivity, and it works perfectly. After 16 years being rewarded for giving right answers instead of asking right questions, you become an adult who always seeks the answer that authorities want to hear. You prefer the security of conformity to the risk of independent thinking. Education promised to teach you to think, but taught you to obey. It promised to prepare you for life, but only prepared you to be a cog in the machine. And the cruelest part? you still carry the guilt of not having made better use of the education you received. I'm going to tell you about the war happening in your mirror. Your body became a battlefield between who you are and who the system needs you to be. Every inch, every imperfection, every sign of aging is treated as a problem that needs to be solved. By buying some solution, you can no longer simply inhabit your body peacefully. You need to always be working on it, improving, optimizing, correcting. Gym to get strong, diet to get thin, cosmetics to stay young, surgery to get perfect. Your body became an endless project. But this obsession isn't about health or well-being. It's about control. A body that's never good enough generates a mind that never feels adequate. A person insecure about their appearance is easier to manipulate, more willing to buy solutions, less likely to question authorities. The beauty and fitness industry created standards impossible to achieve naturally, then sells the products that promise to help you get there. It's a game where the rules are manipulated so you always lose, always need one more product, one more treatment, one more effort. Students of modern power show how it no longer works through external punishment, but through discipline of bodies. We create systems that make people control themselves, internalizing impossible standards. Your body, which should be your home, became your prison. You don't live in it with pleasure, but with constant anxiety. You don't feel it as a source of strength, but as a source of shame. And while you're busy hating your body, controlling every calorie, checking every wrinkle in the mirror, you don't have mental energy to question why you need to do all this. A disciplined body produces a disciplined mind, and a disciplined mind is a mind that doesn't rebel. I need to tell you about our new religion. Technology became our absolute faith, complete with unquestionable dogmas, promises of salvation, and blind worship of progress. Anything new is automatically considered better. Any innovation is seen as evolution. Any criticism of technology is treated as heresy against the future. We religiously believe that technology will solve all of humanity's problems. Hunger, poverty, diseases, loneliness, ignorance, everything will be cured by the next innovation. But notice something strange. The more technology we have, the more new problems arise. Automation would free us from repetitive work, but created behavioral surveillance that never existed in history. Smartphones connected us to the entire world, but disconnected us from the people next to us. Social networks promised to bring people together, but created the loneliest generation in history. Every new technology is sold as liberation, but in practice creates new forms of dependence. You no longer need to memorize information, but lost the ability to think deeply. You no longer need to make an effort to entertain yourself, but lost the ability to be alone with your thoughts. Already in the 1960s, thinkers warned that technology isn't neutral. It has its own logic and imposes its structure on society. We don't use technology, it uses us, shaping our behaviors, relationships, way of thinking. We gave up our privacy for free maps, our attention for infinite entertainment, our capacity for reflection for instant answers, our humanity for digital efficiency. And we call this progress, as if there were no alternative, as if this were the only possible direction. Now, I'm going to tell you about the system's most impressive trick. You know what's the most brilliant characteristic of modern control? Its ability to absorb even the movements that should destroy it. Every genuine rebellion is quickly captured, processed, and transformed into a sellable product. Resistance becomes a trademark. Think about the counterculture movements of the 1960s. They began as radical rejection of consumerism, militarism, traditional values. But within a few years, hippie aesthetics were being sold in department stores. Protest music became commercial soundtracks. Long hair and colorful clothes became fashion runway trends. Punk emerged as a scream of revolt against the system, but quickly became a uniform sold in specialized stores. Rap was born in the streets as the voice of the oppressed, but became a marketing tool for global brands. Even more recent movements follow the same pattern. Environmental activism becomes conscious consumption that generates new markets. Criticism of capitalism becomes social entrepreneurship. The search for authenticity becomes personal branding that transforms even personality into a product. The system learned it doesn't need to suppress rebellion. It just needs to commercialize it. It doesn't need to silence dissident voices. It just needs to transform them into influencers. Studies show how capitalism incorporated cultural criticism, transforming rebellion into marketing strategy. Counterculture didn't destroy the system, it strengthened it. It's as if all revolutionary energy were captured by a machine that transforms it into fuel to keep everything working exactly as before. Today's rebel is tomorrow's entrepreneur. The revolutionary becomes a motivational guru. And the cruelest part? The rebels themselves start believing they changed the world when actually they just fed the system with new energy. I'm going to ask you a simple question that could change your life. When was the last time you were in complete silence? Not silence of nobody's talking, but real silence. Without background music, without television on, without phone in hand, without anything. Just you and your thoughts. I bet you can't remember. And there's a scary reason for that. We live immersed in constant noise. Not just sound noise, but mental, emotional, spiritual noise. From the moment we wake up until bedtime, we're bombarded with information, stimuli, notifications. Our grandparents knew silence. They knew what it was like to be alone with their own thoughts. They knew boredom, contemplation, deep reflection that only comes when the mind isn't being constantly fed. That silence wasn't empty. It was the space where wisdom was born. Today, silence has been eliminated from our lives. There's always a podcast to listen to, a video to watch, music to hear. Even in the most intimate moments, in the bathroom, in bed, walking, we're connected, stimulated, busy. But this constant noise isn't accidental. It's a strategy. Because in silence, dangerous things happen. You start to realize you're not really happy. You start questioning whether your life makes sense. You start feeling the emptiness that all the consumption and entertainment were trying to mask. In silence, you find yourself, and a person who knows themselves deeply is a threat to the system. It's someone who can't be easily manipulated by propaganda. It's someone who won't accept any lie just because it was repeated 1,000 times. It's someone who trusts their own intuition more than mass opinions. Already in the 17th century, thinkers observed that all of men's unhappiness comes from not knowing how to stay quiet in a room. They couldn't imagine a world where staying quiet would become almost impossible. That's why you feel uncomfortable when you're a few minutes without stimulation. That's why you instinctively grab your phone whenever there's a pause. That's why you turn on something to make background noise, even when you're alone. The system knows that whoever controls silence controls the mind, and a mind that never silences never awakens. Now we reach the heart of everything. What makes the modern control system so efficient is precisely its invisible and seductive nature. Unlike authoritarian regimes of the past, which needed to use explicit violence, the current system doesn't even need to raise a hand. There are no soldiers knocking on your door because you've already opened all the doors voluntarily. There's no explicit censorship because you yourself choose to consume only content that confirms your beliefs. There are no forced labor camps because you voluntarily work more hours than any slave in history. The system doesn't need to forbid you from traveling because you spend all your money on things you don't need. It doesn't need to prevent you from reading deep books because you prefer spending time on social networks. It doesn't need to forbid you from thinking because you outsourced your thinking to influencers and algorithms. It's the perfect jail. You have the keys, but you're convinced you're free. You can leave at any time, but choose to stay because prison is more comfortable than freedom. The bars are invisible, but they're stronger than any metal. And here's the most impressive part. If someone tries to show you the bars, you defend them. If someone questions whether this is really freedom, you get offended. If someone suggests maybe there's a different way to live, you call them radical, nostalgic, disconnected. Already in the 16th century, thinkers wondered why people choose to be slaves when they could be free. The answer was simple and disturbing. Because servitude becomes a habit, a second nature. People forget what it's like to be free. The greatest force of this system isn't its ability to oppress, but its ability to make oppression seem like personal choice. It's not its ability to control, but its ability to make control seem like freedom. The system doesn't raise a hand because it discovered something much more efficient, making you raise your hand against yourself. Let me tell you about modern slavery. Modern work created a new category of slavery, more efficient than the old one, because the slave pays for their own maintenance. You work 8 hours, sometimes 12, sometimes more, and still consider yourself lucky to have a job. But work today isn't about trading time for money. It's about trading your identity, your creativity, your humanity for a salary that barely pays the bills. You don't work only during business hours. You take work home, dream about it, worry about it on weekends. Work has invaded all aspects of your life. Anthropologists discovered something shocking. A giant portion of modern jobs don't produce anything of real value to humanity. They're jobs created just to keep people busy, too tired to question the system, too dependent to rebel. You work 40 years of your life to have the right to retire when you're too old to enjoy it. You dedicate your best years, your most vital energy, your sharpest mind to enriching people you'll never meet. And you call this building a career. Work became a religion with its own rituals, hierarchies, and promises of salvation. Work hard and you'll be rewarded. Be productive and you'll be valued. Make sacrifices today to have success tomorrow. But the rewards never come. The appreciation is always conditional, and success is always redefined to stay out of reach. And while you're obsessed with productivity, goals, performance, and professional growth, there's no time left to grow as a human being. There's no energy left to question whether you really want to spend your life doing something you don't love to impress people who don't matter. Modern work doesn't liberate, it imprisons. But a prison so well disguised that you compete with other prisoners for the best cell. I'm going to tell you about how they transformed the family into a consumption machine. The modern nuclear family was designed to be the smallest possible consumption unit. Unlike traditional extended families, where resources were shared among several generations, the nuclear family needs to buy everything separately. Each house needs its own washing machine, its own car, its own equipment. It's an artificial multiplication of needs. But most impressive is how the family became a factory for producing consumers. Children are exposed to advertising from birth, being trained to associate love with gifts, success with brands, identity with products. The pressure to be a successful family forces parents to work more and more hours to pay for private school, extracurricular activities, sports equipment, technology, brand name clothes. Quantity substitutes for quality. Since they don't have time to be really present, they compensate by buying things. Sociologists show how the modern family lost its function of forming character and values, becoming just a place for consumption and rest between work shifts. Parents outsource education to school, entertainment to television, values to advertising. And children grow up thinking, love is something you buy, that problems are solved by consuming, that identity is built through brands. They become perfect adults for a system that needs insecure and dissatisfied consumers. The family, which should be the last refuge against market logic, became its most efficient outpost. Now I'm going to reveal the biggest lie of modern democracy. The democracy we live in today created the perfect illusion of political participation. You can vote every 4 years, choosing between candidates pre-selected by parties that are financed by the same economic groups. It's like choosing between Coca-Cola and Pepsi. Different brands, but the same industry controlling the market. While you're busy discussing partisan politics, fighting with relatives on WhatsApp about left and right, the real decisions are made in private rooms by people who never appear on ballots. Central banks define economic policies without consulting anyone. Multinational corporations influence legislation through lobbies. International organizations impose rules that no people chose. Linguists called this manufacturing consent, a system where people believe they're participating in important decisions when actually they're just choosing between pre-approved options. It's facade democracy, controlled participation. And it works perfectly because it spends all your political energy on secondary issues while fundamental structures remain untouched. You can protest, you can vote, you can demonstrate, but always within limits that don't threaten the real power system. True politics, the kind that could change the rules of the game, was carefully removed from public debate. Questioning the monetary system, ownership of media, corporate structure of the economy, is considered extremism. Democracy became a pressure release valve that releases tension without changing anything fundamental. You feel like a participating citizen, but you're only participating in the spectacle. Real power remains where it always was, away from spotlights, away from ballot boxes, away from your reach. Now, I'm going to give you the most important news of all. If there's a way out of this labyrinth of pleasure and control, it's not in more comfort, more ease, more instant gratification. True freedom requires exactly the opposite. The courage to embrace discomfort, to bear restlessness, to face emptiness without trying to fill it immediately. Freedom means turning off your phone and enduring the anxiety that comes after. It means being alone with your thoughts without running to some distraction. It means facing your fears without anesthetizing them with entertainment. It's waking up and not immediately checking social media, even when your mind screams for stimulation. It's walking without headphones and bearing the silence. It's eating dinner without turning on the television. It's going to bed without needing to tire your eyes on a screen. The path to freedom necessarily passes through discomfort, because excessive comfort is exactly the tool that keeps you trapped. Every time you choose the harder path instead of the easier one, you're exercising freedom muscles that atrophied from lack of use. This doesn't mean living a life of masochistic deprivation, but recovering the ability to choose consciously instead of reacting automatically. It means developing tolerance for discomfort, so your decisions are no longer dictated by desperate search for immediate relief. A person who can be comfortable in their own skin without needing to consume anything is a person the system can't control. Someone who finds satisfaction in simplicity doesn't need to work 60 hours a week to buy happiness. Those who feel complete inside don't need to seek validation outside. Survivors of great traumas discovered that the last human freedom is the ability to choose our response to circumstances. Even in the greatest physical oppression, the mind can remain free. Today, our prison is more subtle, but our power of choice remains intact. Real freedom hurts because it means giving up the illusion that someone else will solve your problems. It means taking total responsibility for your own life, even when it's easier to blame the system. But this pain is clean, honest, transforming. It's completely different from the empty suffering of infinite consumption. And now we reach the end of this journey, but also the beginning of yours. True disobedience doesn't happen in the streets with signs and shouts. It happens in the intimacy of your consciousness, in the silence of your thoughts, in the quietude of your moments alone. It's an interior revolution that no one can see, but that transforms everything. To disobey today means refusing to participate in the race. It means stopping wanting to impress people you don't even know with things you don't even want. It means choosing the essential and leaving the superfluous, even when everyone is accumulating. It's disobedience to sit in silence for a few minutes every day, without doing anything productive, without consuming content, without optimizing anything. It's disobedience to look at the sky without photographing. It's disobedience to have a deep conversation without sharing on networks. To disobey is to refuse to transform every moment of life into consumable content. It's maintaining some sacred spaces where no phone enters, no hurry enters, no logic of efficiency enters. It's preserving internal territories where only you have access. The most radical disobedience is simply being yourself in a world that profits from your personal dissatisfaction. It's being at peace with who you are, without needing to constantly improve or optimize. It's finding joy in simple things that can't be sold. It's not about fleeing society or living as a hermit. It's about maintaining inner clarity to participate in the world without being swallowed by it. It's like learning to swim. You can be completely in the water without drowning. Interior disobedience begins with small acts of presence, paying real attention in a conversation instead of thinking about the next response, eating while tasting the flavor instead of watching television, walking feeling your feet on the ground instead of planning the rest of the day. Thinkers of civil disobedience chose to go to prison instead of financing wars they considered unjust. Today, the most necessary civil disobedience is refusing to finance with our attention and energy a system that diminishes us as human beings. These are tiny gestures that seem insignificant, but represent the difference between living your own life and being lived by the system, between being the subject of your own existence and being the object of others' desires. The silent revolution has already begun. The question that remains is, will you participate, or will you continue sleeping inside the dream others created for you? This knowledge you just received isn't just information. It's a calling, an invitation to see beyond the surface, to question what seems unquestionable, to awaken from the collective dream that keeps us trapped in invisible chains. Huxley showed us, almost a century ago, that the future wouldn't be governed by brute force, but by subtle seduction. And that future has already arrived. We're living inside the prophecy, playing exactly the roles that were written for us. But knowing the script is the first step to improvising a different ending. True freedom isn't in more consumption options, more entertainment, more comfort. It's in the courage to choose silence in a noisy world, simplicity in a complex era, presence in an age of constant distraction. It's in refusing to be just another product of the system that promises happiness, but delivers only dependence. Either you wake up now, or you continue dreaming the life the system chose for you. If this content touched something deep in you, if it awakened questions that were sleeping, then you've already begun your own interior revolution. Subscribe to the channel to continue this journey of awakening, and leave your like so more people can discover these truths that can transform their lives. Change begins when we stop passively consuming and start consciously choosing.